Well, we just got married, but we're not ready for kids yet, So therefore, we'll wait a year or two to have kids, real dummies. If you're old enough to get married and you're old enough to relate with one another, then you're old enough to take care of kids. And if you're not one, you can't do the other either. So therefore, it's clear that who's laughing? Therefore, it is quite clear that the concept of children is a very important concept. And there's your proof. There's a few proofs over there also. They're making good noise. I like that. Let them make more noise. Good. House that's quiet is dangerous. A house that's loaded with kids jumping, dancing, flying off the wall. Ah, beautiful. Liveliness. Children. Anyway, there's one of the original books of the Mitzvots was a book called the Chinuch. The Chinuch has a commentary called the Minchas Chinuch. And the Minchas Chinuch writes a very interesting comment. He says, you do not fulfill the mitzvah of having children until you have grandchildren. So, of course, this past Thursday night, thank you, Oz, we were able to celebrate. I had a great-grandchild, what was it, 2 weeks ago. So that's a beautiful thing. Baruch Hashem, and we're expecting another one this week, I think, we're expecting. We have another one in the oven for August. So Baruch Hashem, we're busy. Why don't you fulfill the mitzvah till grandchildren? Why was that idea? It's a concept. Concept, huh? Let's say, talk.
I was going to assume since the purpose of an individual is to be able to be fruitful and multiply.
Right.
Your child has not fulfilled their obligation.
What about you? You did.
You did, but
so therefore, why does the Chinuch say that you do not fulfill your mitzvah until grandchildren?
You know that you have a generation.
Why is that important?
Huh?
Why is that important?
Because that's what we keep our tradition. It's a mitzvah. You share.
Okay. Let me clarify. Your points are good. The point is, having children does not begin with conception and end with delivery. When does the mitzvah begin? It begins with delivery. That's when the mitzvah is. Raising the children, developing them, directing them, helping them, guiding them, teaching them, so that they are capable of living a good life. And a good life means having children of their own. When you know that you have children who can have children of their own, God willing, physically capable and mentally capable, then you know that you've done the mitzvah. The mitzvah is to raise the children to the point where they can live a good life. And having children of their own is living a good life. Now, for younger people like yourselves, so you're just thinking about the children, not thinking about the grandchildren just yet. I understand that. But I want to get the perspective across. And the perspective is raising them is the job. Raising them is the job. And in raising them, teaching them the proper values, the proper messages of Hashem. This is different than the mitzvah of the non-Jews. We talked about this. We said that there are 7 mitzvahs of the non-Jewish world. We call them Sheva mitzvahs, B'nai Noach. 7 mitzvahs that the Noachide people who are not Jewish have to keep. These 7 mitzvahs are very valuable and very important. To prove the point, it really is a springboard if anyone's ever considering conversion at all. Why is that so? One of our great converts in history is a woman named Ruth. Ruth, Rus or Root, is spelled Resh, Vav, Taf. The gematria, the numerical value of Resh, Vav, Taf is 606, which simply means that her life up until now, up until she considered conversion, was a life of 7 mitzvahs. When she adds 606, she becomes a 613er. And that makes you into a Jew. These 7 mitzvahs that people do, genuine, good human beings, are beautiful people, and they're loved by God, and they have a share in the world to come. Good goyim, righteous Gentiles, fine people we respect and we admire and we love. And there's room for them, and there's important value for them, and God has value for them. That's why He made them. The Jewish concept is a little different. The Jewish concept adds 606 more. So, of course, if a person comes to me and asks for conversion, my job is to discourage, right? Why would you want to convert? You can go to heaven on 7. Why would you want to have 606 more? Why would you bother with this? So one woman actually told me, I couldn't believe it. She actually told me, I'm doing it because my husband's Jewish and I want to be his wife. I said, are you honestly telling me that? I mean, you're not doing it for yourself. You're doing it because of somebody else. Where's your own independence, your own personality, your own sense of being? Ooh, I mean, it just irritated me. And the idea is that I am who I am. Whatever will come, will come. Suppose your husband decides he doesn't want you anymore. Still going to go through with this? Suppose your girlfriend says she doesn't want you anymore. You're going to go through with this? That's the point. The point is self-understanding, self-realization. So, of course, Ruth, who already is a self-made person in terms of her 7 commandments, in terms of her sense of being, and knows what she wants out of life, all of a sudden decides she wants more. And that's weird from 2 perspectives. Number one, she's adding 606 more. That's why her name is Ruth. Reish Vav Tav is 606. To the 7, right? 613. But in addition to that, she's also adding another dimension. And that's a dimension called isolation. Once you become Jewish, you isolate yourself from the rest of the world. You're a different person. You're not like everybody else anymore. And that has to be understood in terms of identity, in terms of realization. That has to be understood that we as a people, thank God in America, are for the most part accepted. For the most part, it's okay. Is there little anti-Semitism all over the place? Absolutely. Are there loads of goyim that hate us? Without a question. In America. There are loads of jobs that Jewish people can't get unless they work Saturday, maybe. Or they change their names, which many have done. Or take off their kippot in order to keep a job. But the thing is that once you take a step over that threshold, like getting married, right? You're in it, you're stuck. And you got to really be sure about it and sense that this is the thing you want to do. Ruth understood that. Ruth understood that this is what she wanted to do, despite the fact that she's going to move to Israel with a ex-mother-in-law. No one gets along with regular mother-in-law. She gets along with her ex-mother-in-law, mind you. No husband, no person in sight they even think of, no person that she might even, and she's coming penniless, broke. So who's going to look at this woman? She has no family. She's a stranger, a convert, and she has no money, and she's brand new here in the neighborhood. Everyone's eyebrows are up. And worse, she's saddled with a mother-in-law. Who stands up to the plate? The tzaddik, Boaz. Boaz is a man who comes and says, this is a righteous woman. And that's who I'm looking for. Someone who's truly righteous, someone who's truly holy within herself and senses herself. And so Ruth becomes a Jew. But let's go back and talk about Ruth before she was Jewish. Let's talk about those 7 mitzvahs, because one of them is not having children, which means that the goyim have no mitzvah to have children. Yet it's a good thing. It's a nice thing. We don't want them to be extinct, right? Humanity shouldn't be extinct. People have to live in the world. So there's another observance. It's not called a mitzvah, it's called an observance. What's the observance? It's called mitzvah kiyumit velo chiyuvit. You get a mitzvah if you do it, but you're not obligated. Like for instance, tzitzit. Everybody knows that we wear tzitzit. So what is tzitzit? Tzitzit, I mean, besides being the Jewish fringe benefits, you understand? Besides that, what's the purpose of tzitzit? The purpose of tzitzit is to have the recognition of Hashem. But it's only obligatory if you're wearing a 4-cornered garment. If you're not wearing a 4-cornered garment, you don't need it. So this is a mitzvah called kiyumit. If I do it, I get a mitzvah. But it's not chiyuvit, I'm not chayav. There's a mitzvah to live in Eretz Yisrael. That mitzvah is a mitzvah kiyumit, not chiyuvit. I'm not obligated to live there, but it's a wonderful thing if I do. And I get a mitzvah if I do. So the point is that for the goyim, having children is a mitzvah that is kiyumi. That is a beautiful thing if they do it, but they're not obligated. Why is that so? Why is it not part of the Sheva mitzvahs, B'nai Noach, the 7 mitzvahs of the Goyim? And the answer is simple, because having children has 2 dimensions. One is, of course, physically having them. The other is, of course, the notion or the idea that you want to develop them, guide them, direct them, and teach them. The non-Jew has no obligation to direct the child in a specific manner. Whatever the child wants to do, he or she does. The Jew has a different direction. The Jew has the obligation to take care and direct the children. And let's not think about it in terms of brainwashing either, because sure, we want to direct our kids. We want to direct them in the proper way, but we're not brainwashing children. We're giving them opportunities to think, to understand, to explain, to realize why this is beautiful. But put your own foot forward first. In other words, if let's say a person comes and says, I want to convert to Judaism. So I say to the person, what is your previous religion? The person says, I was a Catholic, I was a Muslim, or whatever I was, right? I was a Buddhist, whatever. So I say, well, what's wrong with that? If you haven't searched your own heritage first, then you really don't have a right to search elsewhere until you first begin with what your heritage is. If you don't like it, then come back to me. So if a Jew comes to me and tells me, well, I just converted to some other religion, I say, why didn't you check your own religion out first? Stay with what you know until you see that there is a need for change. And so that's what Avraham Avinu did. Avraham Avinu, according to tradition, began to discover or think about God when he was 3. Began to discover God. Huh?
Who teach the non-Jew they have to do the 7?
That's a great question. Hang on to that. So Avraham Avinu is 3, and he discovers God when he's 40, according to tradition. 40 years old. What did he do for 37 years? He searched. He tried. He understood. He thought. He considered. Maybe that religion. Maybe that religion. Maybe that religion. Maybe that religion. Maybe secularism. Maybe atheism. What's the truth? You can understand that a man who does this kind of search, when he comes up with the truth, has got it, because he's checked everything else out. In the same way, we're supposed to do the same thing. But if your original tradition is Jewish, then that's where you should start. If your original tradition is not, then that's where you start and make a change if you have to. So the point is that Ruth realizes after all this consideration, she wants to change. So the idea is that if I have a child, if non-Jewish couple have children, they haven't got an obligation to teach them particularly this religion. So I'm teaching my children to be a Catholic. Now I'm teaching my children to be a Protestant. What does that make a difference? Teach them to be good people. End of story. The Jew has an obligation to teach his children Judaism. The idea is that if it's a whole new different mitzvah, it's a mitzvah of raising them. And that's really the mitzvah that is applicable upon Jews, that is different than the mitzvah upon non-Jews. You had something to ask. Well, that was in terms of living with Ryan. That's correct. Yeah, which is interesting because where did the mitzvah come from? Anybody? Came from Adam and Eve. But wait a second, Adam and Eve are Goyim. I don't get it. We just said Goyim don't have the mitzvah, and we're saying that about Pru Ravu, and yet we say that God gave it to Adam and Chava in the beginning. How do we understand that? So what we understand is a very interesting concept. It's a general learning principle. It's important for you to remember that every one of those 7 mitzvahs that the non-Jew has, the prohibition of stealing, murder, adultery, cruelty, believing in God, setting up a law, law of law and order, and the system of justice. All these mitzvahs are part of us because we're people too. So what it really means is that when God gave these first 7 mitzvahs to Adam, and then after the flood to Noach, what God really did was then he then later on, after the Torah was given, he repeated them. And you'll find them repeated in subtle ways, perhaps. For instance, the idea of having children, on the other hand, was not repeated. So therefore, it's a strange situation. You've got 7 mitzvahs that belongs to the Jews, but Pru U'Revu was never repeated to the Jews. That means that Pru U'Revu belongs to the Jews in the first place. And in the very first place, when God gave Adam and Chava the mitzvah, it was intended for Jews only. The other 7 were intended for everybody, but not children. Children became the exclusive property of Jews in terms of the mitzvah of raising them. On the other hand, in terms of having them, there's a mitzvah to populate the world. Because when you populate the world, the more people adore God, the more God becomes famed and revered throughout the world he created. Your question.
So if the
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam
parents are
she'akol
controlled, not obligated, teach them nothing. So who teaching them to do the 7 mitzvot and all?
Oh, so the answer is, that's our job. That's our job. I mean, they could do it. It's not a bad idea if they tried it, but they're not obligated.
We have to go after.
We have to represent civilization in the world. If adultery is forbidden, okay, we have to promote that message. Maybe we promote that message by running for Congress and getting elected, and or getting to the Supreme Court or whatever, and getting rid of all the stupid things that they have these days. Abortions, all this other Roe and Wade and Roe, right? You know, do it to Roe and Wade. Either row your boat or you wade in the water. You know? Bad joke. All right. It was a bad joke. So at least laugh anyway. Point is that abortion is certainly a terrible thing. It's without a doubt a violation of the Torah. It's a violation of murder. And if that's the case, how much certainly you have to fight to promote this cause as Jews. I mean, it's our job to promote to the world the prohibition of stealing, the prohibition of adultery, the prohibition of murder. Our job to promote morality in the world and to remove all these crazy liberal ideas. Sure, that's where the 7 mitzvahs b'nei comes from, because it's written in our Torah. But there are pockets of people in different states in the country and in Israel who have joined and made themselves their own congregation called B'nai Noach. They're B'nai Noach. And frankly, it's a beautiful thing. And they adhere to the laws of the Torah as they are described and defined by the Torah of those 7 mitzvahs B'nai Noach. In any event, so, and your question. Whose question? Your question? No. Anyway, so there's the mitzvah of having children. Next mitzvah 41, 44 is how to get married. So we talked about it and we said the way to get married is to perform an act called kiddushin. What's kiddushin? Kiddushin means holiness. That means marriage is holy. That means that marriage is a marriage in which a husband and wife are engaging in that sense of intimacy and connection that will produce children and build a family. It's got to be with heavy duty commitment. What does Kiddushin mean? Kiddushin means the kind of commitment that does what? Kiddushin what it does is it says, this is holy, this is separated, this is distinctively different than any other thing you're doing. So when you deal with something that's holy, it's got to be dealt with in a very, very different and reverential manner. You can set aside things for holiness. I'm going to set aside some wood and make myself an ark. The wood becomes holy. I'm going to set aside an animal, and I'm going to sacrifice that animal, and that animal becomes holy. If you take an animal that was set aside for a sacrifice in the Beit HaMikdash, and you take that sacrifice, that animal, and when you take it, you decide, you know what, I pledged this to the temple in Yerushalayim, but I want it back. So not only are you stealing, but you're also embezzling. What does embezzlement mean? It means that you have taken something that's holy and used it for secular purposes. I designate I designate this cup to use for kiddush. Then I use it for other things. That's taking it away from its designation of holiness. I designate this book, and I print it to make it a book of prayers. Then I decide to use it for trash or something, right? So that's taking away kedusha that is already existent, and you are doing what with it?
Now, do
And
you have to have an intent for that, or by you doing the act itself? Creates it?
just the act itself,
Is it one time or 3 times?
anytime.
So one time you used the item holiness.
Yeah, sure. Because you've designated as such. The animal for sure. So we have to understand that designation is like a pledge. We've talked about keeping your word and stuff. I designate this woman to me, to be mine. That means she is not permitted to anyone else. That means that she belongs to me. That is a very, very special designation. All of a sudden, say, I don't like you anymore. You're idiot. Can't do that. You owe her. You made a commitment to her. You have a determination. So people don't. It's interesting about engagement parties. How many times have you heard about persons who've had engagement parties who broke off their engagement within the next 6 months while they were waiting for the wedding? She got another reason why she would get married quicker, when I'm waiting for those weddings and stuff. How many people have you ever heard that? Well, they broke off the engagement. Have you heard a story about the woman that they broke off the engagement? So they asked her, "Well, why did you break it off?" She said, "I lost interest in the guy." So they said to her, "Well, did you give the ring back?" "No, I didn't lose interest in the ring. I like the guy." Point is that there is a need for a commitment, and once you make that commitment, that's it. Now we.
Like if you want to break it up, leave this time.
So here's the question: what is an engagement party? Anybody ever attend an engagement party? No. So an engagement party usually is meaningless get together with some good food. It's really dumb and stupid. It has no reality whatsoever. I don't think I ever had an engagement party. I can't think of it. I can't remember it anyway. I mean, either you're gonna get married or you're not. Yeah, they have these l'chaim, they have these words. I'm not. The religious community, right? Okay, and the religious community likes doing it, and I'm not going to go against it, but it has no real sense of value. You're not meaning. You're not committed, none whatsoever. You can take off tomorrow for Timbuktu and say, "See ya," no problem. But in Jewish law, an engagement is a kiddushin. And the kiddushin is where you give a ring or something of value to the bride, to your wife to be, and you do so in front of two witnesses. That is kiddushin. That means now you're committed to her, she's committed to you. Before the way. Oh, that used to be that way. Now it doesn't happen that way anymore. So let me explain to you the difference. In the Talmudic times, the times of the Talmud, 2,000 years ago, you would make an act of kiddushin. Kiddushin would be, let's say, giving something of value to the woman. That giving is called taking possession or ownership. That means you're stuck. You got to take care of her and be married to her, and you promise to marry, and you're going to marry her, and you're financially committed 1,000%. The only difference is that if you do really want to break up, you're going to need to get a divorce. Otherwise, you're stuck. So, point is that in Talmudic times they would make the kiddushin, he'd give the ring in front of two witnesses, and then the couple would retire to their respective homes, and you go to your home, and I'll go to my home, and we'll prepare for the wedding in 12 months. But the rabbis realized there's a problem in this rule, in this custom. It was a custom, and there's a problem. What's the problem? Problem is during these 12 months, maybe there's anxiety, maybe there's issues, maybe there's discussions, maybe we'll get into an argument, and we're really not related completely to each other, because even though we are committed to each other, we are not permitted to live with each other. we're not permitted to sleep with each other because we don't have the benefit of the chuppah or the 7 brachot, the Sheva brachot. So when you haven't got that, you really have a commitment on all financial and other levels, but you are not entitled to be together until you get a bracha. Because anything in life requires a bracha. In the marriage, it requires 7 brachas. What's the difference? 1, 2, 3, 7. There is a difference. One of the ideas, by the way, of Sheva brachas, 7 blessings, is the notion that 7 brings you all the way to Shemayim, to heaven. 7 heaven. What does it mean? It means basically is that there are 7 rungs of life that exist between this world and the next world. When you make Sheva brachas, what you're saying to your wife is, we're in this forever, for eternity. What does eternity mean? That means not just this world, but the next world. And the idea of having that side of eternity is reflected through the number 7. Because really there are 10 areas or sphirot, we call them, these 10 that the Kabbalah teaches of the 10 rungs of life. 3 of them are here. 3 of them are expressed through Chabad. Chachma, Bina, Vadat. Wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. And then beyond that, there's 7 more. Now, when you make this commitment's forever. So you make Sheva brachas, and in the Ashkenaz custom, the kala goes around the chassan, the bride goes around the groom 7 times. The whole idea is against that notion of eternity. Now, you don't have that. You can't sleep with each other because you can't produce a new generation to eternity. Because you have to have that commitment that's beyond giving of the ring, beyond the witnesses, into brachas, into blessings, into the chuppah, which is the model of the home you're going to build together, standing together under the chuppah with Hashem. So all this, you see, was really separated in Talmudic times. First, you got the engagement, you gave the ring, 2 witnesses, bride goes home to her parents, you go home to your parents, and you get together in 12 months. During those 12 months, a whole 1,000,001 problems could occur. Maybe you'll get anxiety. Maybe you'll jump the gun and you won't wait. Maybe you'll go and maybe she'll find another man. You'll find another lady. Maybe you can't stand each other anymore. And one of the things about engagement, which makes it really problematic, is the idea that when you are married, you have arguments, which is swell because every argument can be overcome once you have a commitment. But the moment you have no commitment, arguments can easily lead to, well, I'll see you. Arguments can easily lead to, oh, I can't have any more of this. I'm done with that. So therefore, the engagement process that we have today is meaningless until you give the ring. And our custom today is to give the ring when? Under the chuppah, together with the 7 brachas. And so the wedding ceremony that we have today includes the engagement, the giving of the ring, the 2 witnesses, the pronouncement or declaration of you are betrothed to me, says the man, the woman accepting. And then we'll make a little interlude, maybe a 5-10 minute interlude maximum, and we'll read the ketubah. The ketubah is a wonderful custom. It simply outlines in detail what those obligations are, from husband to wife, wife to husband. Now you have the ketubah. Ketubah is presented by the husband to the wife, just like he presented her the ring. The ring, of course, was the one that did the trick. The ketubah is the verification of that ring. A woman is not permitted to live with a man or vice versa without a proper ketubah because she has no protection. The ketubah protects her. Why does the ketubah protect her? Because it outlines his responsibilities, both during the marriage and even post-marriage, post-marital, even after 120 years, there's money left over for her. And what it also understands is that this has to be a sense of verification. Now, a woman comes into the court and says, I married this guy maybe 20 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever, and he don't like me anymore. I don't like him, whatever it is. We want to get a divorce, and I want to collect my ketubah. And he walks into court and says, I don't know this woman. Who is she? Never married in my life. She's a liar. She wants to extort money from me. But your name's on that thing. So what? Not me. It's a different guy, same name. So she's got to bring witnesses. So the only thing she can do is call up the guys that were the witnesses. Hopefully they're still alive. And problem is, they're living in New York. She got to pay 2 airfares to get her to come to LA. So the rabbis came up with a brilliant idea. Let the 2 witnesses who verified the ring giving sign the document. They don't have to show up anymore. The signatures is good. Eidim hachatumim al ashtar k'mo shenechkru edutan bebedin. Witnesses that signed on a document, it's like they've been investigated and found proper in a bedin. Signature is as good as showing up. So she produces this ketubah. This is her safety net, her protection. She can't live without it. If she does, she's considered as if she's having an illegitimate relationship. Let's say, what happens? One second, hold on a second. What happens if she loses the ketubah? Can't be together. Call me up. I got a call 10 o'clock at night. Rabbi, my wife can't find a ketubah. Well, it's a good thing it's not 2 in the morning. I mean, 10 o'clock at night, I can help you. 2 in the morning, it's a little late for me. But I've done it. And we've got how to get 2 more witnesses, how to get 2 other guys that were up at 10 o'clock at night. And we signed the document, allow them to be together. Otherwise, she'd have to move out for that night until we got to do a new ketubah. That's how valuable and important the ketubah is. But the ketubah, after it's done, is really an established principle of the chachamim, of the scholars, of the rabbis. It's not a law of the Torah. The Torah obligates the man monetarily. The fact that there's an obligation to verify that obligation on a document, a piece of paper, that came up from the Rabbana, which is one of their takanos. We talked about, we listen to the leadership of our rabbis who tell us this is the way society will function better. And therefore there's a ketubah. So we read the ketubah, which is not necessary, but we do it anyway. Because that's all you got to do is give the ketubah over. And who has to read the ketubah? They read it before. They read it, they sense it, they sign it, done. But now we're going to read it again in the ceremony so as to separate the giving of the ring with the Sheva Brachas, with the 7 blessings. Now you got the 7 blessings, and now you're married. Because they're 2 separate items. There's engagement and there's wedding. In Hebrew, Erosin, Nisuin. Right, nowadays. They're always that way. In the old days, it was Erosin, and 12 months later, Nisuin. But you understand, if you're arus to someone, and she's your arusa, that doesn't mean you can sleep together, does it? Because you're not married. You're engaged. And the engagement is a big commitment. Because
3 months before, like my niece just did it.
Right, but they didn't do an Erusin. That's again customs, Hasidic customs maybe, but the truth is it has no ultimate value. You can walk away from it. You can walk away from breaking the glass or breaking the plate. I'm sorry, but you can't walk away when you give the ring. That you can't walk away from, and that's only done under the chuppah. Because if you did it earlier and then you wanted to walk away, you couldn't do that anymore. You did it again. Why put people in that kind of trouble? So you got maybe 10 minutes max in between the time you're engaged and the time you're married. That's all you got. 10 minutes, like twice. Yeah.
Now I have a question, but there's 3 ways where you're married: shaliach, tabat, and be'ilah. So it seems like
Who said shaliach?
Huh?
Who says shaliach?
Shaliach is also one of them.
Shaliach is not one of the ways to do it. You can use a shaliach, but there are 3 ways. Kesef, star, and bia. Right. So
Be'ilah is the act of getting married.
that's correct. So if, let's say, a husband and wife decided that they were going to become engaged through the method of having relations, which is an acceptable method, correct? You give the wife money, that's acceptable. You give her a document, that's acceptable. If you have relations with her, it's also effective, and you're now married. The problem with that is that nowadays, nobody thinks that way. Nobody thinks, well, once, we have this casual sex and then all of a sudden we're married. You understand? No one thinks that way anymore. So therefore, it became unacceptable to the Chachamim. The Rabbanan said, no way we're going to use that method anymore. It is effective if you do it. But then again, you have to have two witnesses too. Say, I have two witnesses.
Rabbi, is there an issue with the prenup?
There are issues with it. And the reason there are issues is because the prenup puts a condition to the marriage. And the prenup makes the marriage conditional. And you have to be committed to this lady unconditionally. So the prenup is a problem. And the same thing with the woman. If she's going to agree that it's marriage, she has to agree without any conditions attached to it. And that's basically the idea. So in any event, so the ceremony is, once again, we give the ring. A ring has to be of significant value. The has to be at least a minimum of a pruta, at least I would imagine $50 or something. It has to be a flat gold band, can't be any stones in it, and it's given to the woman with a declaration made beforehand to indicate that this is not a gift. This is for the actual purpose of marriage, for engagement. Harayat mekudeshetli, behold, you are selected by me. Behold, you are holy to me. Behold, you are separated for me from everybody else. I can't see anybody else. You can't see anybody else. That's what harayat mekudeshetli means. Witnesses see it. You say it. You give it. Puts it on the ring. The woman, she has to agree. She agrees simply by taking that finger and by bending it. That means the ring is mine, and therefore you're mine. That's how it works. At that point, we're ready for the chuppah, but we want to make a little separation because I want to make these two different items. These are two different items. One's an engagement, one's a marriage. Two different items. An engagement connects you with a commitment, but does not allow you the benefits. Marriage allows you the benefits. That's the difference. And so therefore, one leads to the other, but the space in between is not healthy. The Rabbanan realized that years ago, 2,000 years ago. So therefore, everything's under the chuppah. If everything's under the chuppah, how do we still make some sort of a designation of the difference between the two? A 10-minute interlude, which is reading the ketubah. By reading the ketubah, for those 10 minutes, I know this is for engagement and this is for marriage. That being the case, I'm going to make bracha. I'm going to make several brachas for the marriage. I'm also going to make a bracha at the time of the engagement. I'm going to make two brachas, two sets of brachas. The first bracha for the mitzvah of engagement is a bracha that really should be said by the chatan himself. But a lot of chatanim are not familiar. They don't speak Hebrew, read Hebrew, speak Hebrew, whatever. So the rabbi usually makes the bracha for the chatan and the kala. When he makes the bracha over a cup of wine, he has to say first, Borei Pri Hagafen. All right? When he made the bracha Borei Pri Hagafen on a cup of wine, he takes a sip himself because he made the bracha, gives it to the chatan to drink, gives it to then usually the mother of the kala gives it to the kala to drink, and then she extends her finger, and he places the ring on the finger by saying his pronouncement declaration before. Then he puts it on, leaves it, lets go immediately. She picks it up, takes it, bends her finger, and the two of them are now engaged to be married. And that's heavy because this is an engagement that you can't get out from. It's a commitment. And the only way you could break it, God forbid, would be a divorce. So now, you want to get married. I mean, we're doing away with all our preparatory stuff, all those, no more 12 months. So I'll spend 10 minutes reading the ketubah, blah, 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 done. Signatures on the bottom of the two witnesses who just watched the ring are on the bottom of this document. Take the ketubah, give it to your bride in front of the two witnesses. The bride then takes the ketubah. It is hers forever and ever and ever. Now, do the two of you want to still get married? Well, yeah. And so therefore, I take another cup of wine and make Borei Pri Hagafen again, because it's a separate matter. It's not the same thing. There's a world of difference between an engagement and a marriage. Now you're married. Now you may be with each other. And now you are blessed with the 7 blessings. And now you have the chuppah over you that shows the home you're going to build together. And now we have a wedding ceremony. And that's basically how we do it. But it has to be understood 2 separate items. One commits, but does not give you any benefits. The other benefits come only after marriage itself. Now, the marriage is really, what does it do? I mean, what does it add? Basically, you know what it adds? It adds the sensation of realizing that you have God's blessings. Up until now, it's all I did was a personal matter, a transaction, business. Here's a ring. Make an agreement. We're doing a deal. But the brachas adds the dimension of Hashem to the relationship. And that's marriage. Marriage is not just a business deal. It is a sense of have a blessing from Hashem that makes it holy and sanctified and separate and distinctive and different than anything else in the whole world. And the 2 people change immensely. And so, of course, we understand that on the day of the marriage, husband and wife are prepared in themselves, not just getting dressed, of course, but also by fasting, according to many customs, and saying vidui, confession. It's Yom Kippur. The day you get married is your personal Yom Kippur. Maybe the greatest and most important Yom Kippur of your entire life is Al Chet Shechatan Lefanecha, Yom Kippur. And that is the sense of the marriage day. Now, if you look at the book, Mitzvah number 44, the book tells you that you have to make this connection and acquisition of Kiddushin beforehand, give the woman the certain money that she deserves, which is the ring. It has to be his property. So the witnesses will come up and the witnesses will ask the Chatan, is this yours? Did you buy it? Make sure it's not anybody else's. I don't tell me it's your grandma's. You understand? If it's your grandma's, then she has to relinquish ownership over to you and you have to own it. And she can't get it back. So make sure you go out there to a jeweler and get your own. You understand? Now, after the witnesses ask if it's yours, the witnesses will also ask you, how much you pay for it? Say $10. That's very, very, very nice to say. So make sure it's something nice and respectable. But of course, it can't have stones. It's a flat gold band, as we explained. And they will say that he will make the declaration that you are sanctified to me according to the laws of Moshe of Israel in front of 2 kosher witnesses. We talked about kosher witnesses last week, and we said if the witnesses is not kosher, the marriage is invalid. Most often, witnesses, as we said last week, usually verify matters. They don't make them happen. If I make a loan to you of $100, the loan's the loan. That's the difference, witnesses or not. Witnesses only verify that I made the loan. On the other hand, here, witnesses make the deal. If you don't have witnesses, you're not married. If your witnesses are not kosher,
What is kosher witness?
Shomer Shabbat,
Why is that to be Shomer Shabbat?
well, because he's not responsible otherwise. A person who doesn't keep Shabbat has no real responsibility to Hashem, has no real responsibility to his people. You can't trust such a guy. If he breaks this, he'll break that. If he'll lie, maybe he'll lie. By the way, Krovim are forbidden. Krovim, right? No relatives. Now let me teach you a little trick that we rabbis learned early on in rabbi school. Torah says, on the basis of 2 or 3 witnesses, a matter is solved. The question arises, if 2 is good, why does the Torah have to say 3? If it's 2 is good, what do you need 3 for? Really?
Maybe, I don't know.
I'm guessing. Doesn't make any sense. If 2 is good, I mean, how can you get any better? If it's good, it's good. You get any better. 2 is good. Rabbis teach that the reason it says 3 is because of whatever number of witnesses you use, they all have to be kosher. If you use 50 and one of them is not kosher, all 50 are no good. Even though 48 of them are good.
Still doesn't explain the difference between 2 and 3. It still does not.
Well, very simple. On the basis of 2 kosher witnesses, on the basis of 3 kosher witnesses, something happens. If you have 3 and one's not kosher and you're left with 2 kosher, no good. You get it? In other words, once you say 2 witnesses affect something, 3 does the same, but the 3 has the same rule as the 2. If the 2 have to be kosher, the 3 have to be kosher. So, and the 4 have to be kosher. If any one of them is not, then everything messes up. Even 2 good are left. That's exactly the point. What a beautiful voice. This is going to be a chazan. Whoa, what a great kid. He's learning to every word. Years from now, he'll remember me.
What happens if the 2 witnesses were kosher at the time of signing, and later,
They became bums.
basically?
Later, they became not Shomer Shabbat. Well, listen, at the time, they were Shomer Shabbat. The time was good. Yeah. So let's understand now that I'm designating 2 witnesses. Well, the Chatan really designates 2 witnesses. And he says, at the Chuppah, he says, I designate Yosef and Yaakov to be my 2 witnesses. And he adds the words, to the exclusion of everybody else. Because there's a crowd there of 200 people. And in that crowd of 200, somebody's not kosher. How do I know? They're all Shomer Shabbat, but there's loads of relatives there. If I have 200 witnesses watching a wedding, and one of them is a relative, all 200 are not kosher anymore. You get it? Therefore, he has to make the statement, these 2 witnesses to the exclusion of all others. He makes that statement, and then the 2 witnesses verify the giving of the ring, sign the document of Ketubah, and are ready for the Sheva Brachos, with the 7 blessings. Now, the Chofetz Chaim teaches, just as we start the Kedushin, we make the brachas for the Kedushin, for the engagement. And he actually, if you look at the book, he'll give you the text of the bracha. The text is, bless Hashem, King of the world, Asher Kirishonu B'Tzusav Tzivanu, you made us holy the mitzvahs, and commanded us, Al Ha'arayot, on all those forbidden relationships, the Yosalon Rusot, and made forbidden all those marriages that have not yet been consummated by brachas, but only done by ring. The Hitilonu Tanasuot, but it's us to marry and be with our wives whom we've married under the chuppah with Shabbat. Lanu Ayidei Chuppah v'Kedushin, and he ends Baruch Ato Hashem, Mekadesh Emo Yisrael Ayidei Chuppah v'Kedushin. Bless Hashem, who made his people holy with chuppah and kedushin that the rest of the world does not have. So the real question, of course, is this: do non-Jews get married? Non-Jews have no. I mean, they play around with rings. By the way, speaking about rings, the man gives the ring to the woman. The woman does not give the ring to the man. That's just a matter of point. Why is that so? Because she's not acquiring him. He's acquiring her. He's acquiring responsibility, not her. Our only pledge and promise is fidelity, loyalty. Other than that, she has no obligations to him. Take care of the house, take care of the kids, this and that. But if he wants her to work a little bit, maybe 2-income family, maybe we need it at difficult times, she can say no. He has to beg. And please help, or find someone to help or whatever. But there's no obligation to the woman to have to go to work. But she does not acquire him nor any responsibility for him whatsoever, except for the responsibility of loyalty and the complete being by his side and taking care of him and his children. And so there's no ring given by the woman ring is given by the man only. Now, at this point in time, she becomes his engaged woman, and he is still forbidden to have relations with her, says the Chavetz Chaim, until they go to the chuppah and make the Sheva Brachas. But before that, he's got to write a document called the Ketubah with the witnesses signing, and then she can go into the chuppah, and then she can get the brachas. And then she becomes what is known as Nisuah, from Nisuin, and that's a married woman. That's a status that the woman has even before relations. And this status, therefore, makes her completely married to him, and they are together as a married couple. However, what happens if, let's say, nowadays it's easy to regulate, but what happens if, let's say, the woman has nidah at the time of the wedding? Well, that's a little bit of a problem. Can a man marry a woman when she is nidah? The answer is yes. But he obviously cannot have relations. That's obvious. So since he can't, what do we do? So we have a very interesting concept. First of all, today, it's easily regulated. People take some pills, some women take pills, other ways of figuring out the regular cycle to make sure you make your date accurate. One of the most important rules of wedding, preparing a wedding, is preparing the date. And preparing the date depends upon exclusively the woman. Exclusively. Then you can decide which hall's available and which caterer is available, which music's available, which flowers are available, which rabbi's available. You can do that afterwards. First is up to the woman. Now, sometimes it happens, despite all calculations and despite all preparations, nidah. So what do? Are you allowed to marry a woman that you're not allowed to be with? And the correct answer is no, you can't. If let's say I'm forbidden to marry my sister, right? So can I marry my sister? No, right? It's worthless. So can I marry a woman whose nidah, whose equal is forbidden to me? And the answer is yes. Why? Because that's the kind of prohibition that eventually will come to permission. Well, as the time passes, they emerge into the mikveh, and therefore the husband and wife now can resume relations. But the problem is that they never had it in the first place. So she really, really married? The answer is yes. Why? Because as long as the couple shared the chuppah and shared the 7 blessings, they are not just engaged anymore, they are married. Even though they haven't had yet relations, they have to wait. So how do they wait? Well, obviously you wait by being separate. So how separate do you have to be? Well, generally we all know that in a neither situation, and every married couple, the general custom in our people is that the couples always have 2 separate beds so that they can sleep separately during the time of nidah. Now, let's say nidah is over, so then you put the beds together. But the beds are not permitted to touch each other during the time of nidah. And so, can the husband and wife sleep in the same room, even though they're forbidden to each other, if they're in separate beds? And the answer is yes, because they have both committed themselves to respecting each other's independence, privacy, and of course the mitzvah of Hashem. So that's easy enough. But in the case of a married couple, that's not so easy. Because in as much as a married couple has yet to really be with each other, the issues might be more tense. And because the issues are more tense, not as comfortable, therefore, the best way is, the approved way by halacha, is that the husband and wife are not permitted in the same room, and frankly, not even in the same house. And they have to have a chaperone until the time when the wife goes to the mikveh and they can resume normal marital relations. What about the issue of couples that live together? So they live together without getting married. So we wanted to say that maybe they meant it to be married. Maybe they meant it, so therefore maybe they don't need a ceremony anymore because they're already married. Well, they say there's no witnesses. Yeah, there's witnesses. They live in a Jewish community. Everybody in the community knows. The whole community is witness that they're a couple. So why bother with the ceremony? The answer is that the two of them never really had in mind for a real commitment. No matter how much they say it, or no matter how much they profess it, whatever it is. They never really had it in mind, and therefore they do need a new ceremony where they have in mind what they're planning to do and to make that commitment. What about non-Jews? The non-Jews go through a ceremony, not like this, that's for sure not. The kind of commitment that is asked of a Jewish husband to a Jewish wife and vice versa does not apply to non-Jews. If that's the case, how can non-Jews ever commit adultery? I'm not committed in the first place to the, so how can I mess up? The answer is, once again, similar to the mitzvah of children. It's the non-Jew Jewish couple have committed to each other without the sense of Hashem, or without the sense of, let's say, the sense of the bracha, and committed to the exclusivity of each other, without obviously the bracha or the chuppah, and do so with the sense that any violation of that commitment would be a violation against Hashem. And that is probably the definition of a non-Jewish marriage. What about a couple living together, man and wife, a man and wife, that are not Jew, that one of the parties is not Jewish? Can you have any form of wedding at all in an intermarriage situation? And the answer is, of course not. It has no meaning whatsoever. If that's the case, then what really is the defining factor? The defining factor is, of course, is that whenever you have a situation in which a marriage is a forbidden marriage and is done anyway, it has no validity at all, simply because it goes against the Torah. We talked about before the idea of making a pledge against what the Torah has already pledged you in the first place. Yes.
Just backtrack a little juice here. Mentioning that it is sleeping two separate beds, can't touch.
Right.
You can marry during Nida.
No, you can.
Yes, you can marry during Nida,
Yeah.
but then you mentioned.
Yes. How do you give the ring?
But you can't live in the same room or house and have a shomer in the home until Nida is over.
No, during the process of nida. And when nida's over, then you can kick the chaperone out of the house.
After marriage.
Yeah, once you go to mikvah. Once the wife goes to the mikvah, then you can kick the chaperone out of the house. We want our privacy.
So when there's the whole, do you have two separate beds?
That two separate beds issue is a general issue for all married couples. all married- No, because you've already been together. I'm living a married life for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. I mean, a shomer for 20 years.
It's just the extra show.
He wants to be sure for 20 years.
So once you get married, but you still, like, Nida hits, you have to have the shomer. You can't live in the same room or house.
Right.
This is right after you get married.
Unless you have the shomer.
Unless you, right after you get married.
That's right. And then once the mikvah is done, then you get back to normal relations. Right. Take the shomer out.
But it's only if you got married and the woman was Nida.
Correct.
Then
Then everything's normal. So use your brains and make calculations. And also another good rule, don't upset her. Because if you upset her and she gets a little nervous, little rule of thumb. Anyway, we are told by the Torah that if a man wants to divorce his wife, he found her unfavorable. I'm just reading from the book, if you can read along with me. And he wants to break up the marriage. He's got to write her a get. The writing of the get is a procedure that is, I can't say time consuming, but it is enough. The procedure is enough to make you rethink the matter. That's the point of the rabbis. They're going to try to make you rethink it. They're going to try and save this marriage. They're going to try and do. So in so doing, what they're going to do is they'll have counseling and further counseling and try to speak separately to the man, separately to the woman, whatever it is, to try and help bring them together. If it is all impossible, maybe there are some really flagrant violations. Maybe there's abuse. Maybe there's infidelity, dishonesty, and whatever. All sorts of problems that could occur in this situation, in a marital situation, that would warrant a get. If a woman, the wife, sleeps with another man, the couple is not permitted to be married again with each other. She may never go back to her husband, ever. And so therefore, they have to get married, they have to get divorced. No doubt about it. So you have to do it. Maybe finances is an issue. Well, maybe we'll help you. We'll give you financial aid, whatever. Finances should never be really an issue to separate two people who deserve to be with each other. You struggle, you figure a way out. And we all struggle when we're first married anyway. And the money should never be an overriding. I'm worried I ain't got enough money. I'm worried I only own 2 cars and 3 houses, you understand? I can't provide enough for my wife. I'm broke. I can't got time to learn Torah because I'm so busy making money that I need all that money. I know a family of 14 children that live in 4 bedrooms in Israel. Beautiful family, all 14 happy kids. So let's not get preoccupied with finances. It's the smallest part of your life. People say, I have to live in this neighborhood and not in a Jewish neighborhood near a shul because that's how I make my money. I need to be near my job. No, you don't. Let's put finances in the proper perspective. Man needs to go out and make a job to make a living. And I agree. Torah tells you to. But not to become obsessed with it, preoccupied with it, and make decisions that compromise the rest of your life and the rest of your religious life because of money. And so when there's a real legitimate reason for a divorce, so then the process is that the husband and wife are called in front of a bed din. I served many times in the earlier years on the bed din as well here in LA. And the 3 of us would sit, myself, the chief rabbi who was running it, Rabbi Gansweig of blessed memory, and the 3rd rabbi, and there were 2 witnesses, and then there was oftentimes a shaliach, an agent, and in that way we were ready to do the divorce. And the first half hour of the divorce proceedings is just simply the chief rabbi asking many questions about identity. Who you are, what's your name, where do you come from, how many names you got, how many nicknames you got, and how many languages you use, how many names, and this, that, and that, and how many, what's the city, how many different names does a city have, to get everything accurate in terms of the info that has to be written in the document. And then we write the document. The writing of the document is about 45 minutes. The document is obligated to be written by the husband. However, the document is written on parchment, not on paper. And it's written like a Sefer Torah. And you have to know how to write the Sefer Torah in order to write this kind of document.
So all the husband write it.
He can. So he appoints
The rabbi does
a shaliach. Shaliach, shlucho shel adam, kimoto. A shaliach of a person is himself. That's the Torah allows us. I mean, let's put it this way. You have a mitzvah to do a bris on your son. Did you do it? Why not? It's your mitzvah. You appointed a shaliach. You got someone to do it for you, but you appointed him, right? Just like you appointed 2 witnesses at the chuppah. You got to appoint them, right? You got to appoint. So you appoint the shaliach to write for you. The shaliach is a scribe. He's a sofer. He's a man who's written Torahs. He's a man who's written tefillin. He's a man who's written mezuzahs. Here he is now. He's going to write again. The word get is gimel tet. Gimel tet b'gematria is 3 and 9, 12. Every get has always 12 lines in it. Why the 12 lines? So the reason it has 12 lines is because in a Sefer Torah, there was no punctuation. You don't know when a sentence ends, you don't know when a sentence begins. There's no capitals, there's no periods, there's no commas, there's no apostrophes, no nothing. And certainly no nekudot. And certainly no musical tunes in the Torah either. So what are you doing? Basically, whoever reads the Torah has got to pretty much prepare the parasha and know it Baal Peh, by heart, in order to read it on a Shabbat morning. There is one area where the Torah will make a punctuation, and that is in between books. There's books 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Chamisha Chumshei Torah. In between each book, Bereshit Shmot, Shmot Vayikra, Vayikra Bamidbar, and Vayikra, there are 4 empty lines. These 4 empty lines, multiplied by 4 spaces between the 5 books, is 4 times 4, 16. We do not count the last 4 lines because they are entering into the 5th book of the Torah, which is really a Mishnah Torah. It's a review of the entire Torah. So we just focus on the 3 interruptions, the 3 4-line interruptions for a total of 12 lines. These lines, empty lines, separate book 1 from book 2, book 2 to book 3, and so forth, is the idea that you should know that it's not just one whole Torah, but it is 5 subdivided books. And you have to know that. But then again, why don't we put them in five different scrolls? Why have one scroll for the whole 5 of them? The answer is because there is one Torah, but they have to be subdivided. How do you subdivide it? With the 4 empty lines. 4 empty lines here, 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 and here. Those lines make a distinction and make a cut between book 1 and book 2. In the same way, those same 12 lines, 3 times 4 is 12, makes a cut, an actual cut between the commitment of the husband and wife. And nothing else can separate them but that cutting, and nothing else can cut except a document. And the written document is written. Now, while the written document is writing, there's nothing much to do. So the husband's over there talking to his friends, and the wife is over there talking to her friends. Neither the two talk to each other by this stage of the game anyway, and it gets over, and it gets written. And then you have to sign. Now, signing here is a little tricky, because in order to sign on this document, you need to have the skill of a scribe. I don't have that skill, but I was taught it minimally in order to be able to sign my name, which is what I did as a member of the Beit Din and as a witness. So the 2 witnesses sign on the document, and the document is then rolled and presented to the groom, to the husband. The husband then stands next to his wife, or to be ex-wife, eyeball to eyeball, nose to nose. It is a very, very dramatic and frankly unpleasant situation. And he looks at her, and she looks at him in almost the same way they looked at each other under the chuppah, which is kind of so sad if you think about it. You know, the same way that they were so much together under the chuppah is so separate now, and so everything's messed up and it's so sad and tragic. But he has to look at her in that same way, and he presents to her not the ketubah like he did under the chuppah with marriage, but he presents to her instead a document of divorce, a get. And he says those same words that he said by the ring, he says by the get. Here is your get, just like he said, here's your ring. He gives her the get. She cups her hands in this manner, accepts the get, closes her hands to show that she accepts and is willing to do this, because it doesn't happen without her agreement, right? She takes it, puts it over her shoulder, walks to the end of the room to show and demonstrate ownership. Now hers. That means this get is mine. I'm free from you, and I can go and marry anyone I want. Now, the Mishnah says that there are 2 ways that a woman can obtain a freedom. One is by the get. The other is if the guy dies. If the guy dies, she's a widow, and obviously she's free to marry whoever she wants. Now there are some. What?
But not if she kills him.
Well, no, she can kill him. She doesn't have to go to jail for it, but I mean, but she's free. Maybe it's worth it. I don't know. Could be jail's better when with this guy. could be it's better. Who knows? Anyway, yeah.
It's a get, but there's how does the engagement then break up? Does the ring go back to the?
Nah, that means it's a joke. And who cares? She don't care about the ring. He don't care about the ring. Nobody cares about nothing those days at that moment. So it doesn't mean anything. And frankly, the ring belongs to her. I mean, as a matter of possession, that's how the engagement worked, by giving her possession of it. So therefore, she is not obligated to give anything back. So now, once the divorce is in motion, she is now the woman is now given a warning, and the warning is a divorcee may not marry a Kohen. It's the rules of the Torah. Maybe if a Jew has this kind of holiness that he can't marry a non-Jew, then a Jew then a Kohen has the kind of holiness that it can't marry a divorcee. In other words, higher holiness, more restrictions. For instance, Shabbat versus holidays. Everybody knows Shabbat is a higher sanctity than holidays, because holidays you can cook, and holidays you can transfer fire, carry, but Shabbat you can't. So therefore, Shabbat is certainly of higher holiness. The more the restrictions on the physical level, the greater the holiness. And so therefore, this woman cannot marry a Kohen. The woman also cannot marry for 92 days because we want to make sure that she is not pregnant from the husband that she got divorced from. We want to be able to ascertain the parent, the father of the child. This rule also applies to converts. A convert may not marry a Kohen. Similarly, a convert, we had a case of a situation, and the couple had to break up because a convert cannot marry a Kohen. A convert also may not marry for 92 days, so that we can be assured that whoever she's pregnant to was not the non-Jew from before or any other non-Jew she might have had relations with. The idea of ascertaining any further children's pedigree and genealogy is very important to us. And so we want to know who the father is, even though we obviously will know who the mother is. Yes.
If she's of an age that she can't bear children.
Great question. Great question. What yeshiva you study at? That's very good. That's astute. The question was posed to Rabbi Moshe Feinstein. Moshe Feinstein said, if a woman is of age where she can no longer bear children, she does not have to wait the 92 days. However, there was a Sephardic rabbi named Avad Yosef that came up with a new idea that said the following, that the woman, if she's Sephardic, or if the man is Sephardic, do not have to wait 92 days if she takes a pregnancy test, which is available nowadays. They didn't have it those days, so they had to wait the 92 days in any event. But nowadays, with the pregnancy test available, that can be used as well.
And what if she's under a birth control?
That wouldn't help. That wouldn't be enough of a verification for us. It's not foolproof. A pregnancy test is foolproof. That's correct. The Ashkenaz or Rav Moshe Feinstein did not accept the pregnancy test. He felt there was a need to keep the tradition of the 92 days. Trying to understand two different opinions, one based on a loyalty to tradition, one accepting the new modern inventions, is a rather interesting analysis. How do you understand that? And frankly, it's not to say that the Sephardic rabbi doesn't respect tradition. Don't get me wrong, but it seems to indicate that perhaps the Chacham Avad Yosef felt that there was a reason for leniency. In other words, if you can wait the 92, wait it. If you can't because of outstanding reasons, then you can rely on this in a, let's say, a difficult situation. But optimally, he would agree to wait 92 days. The ability to do a get does not happen by your own volition or by anyone that you want to do it with or the civil courts or whatever. It is worthless unless you do it according to the rabbinical tradition. But the three Beddin, as members of Beddin, as I said, and those are the only ways that a get can be administered properly and acceptable. Otherwise, if that get is not done, the couple is still married. I know they got divorced in a court 10 years ago, and I know this, that, and that, and it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you have no get, you're still married. And if you marry someone else, we talked about this last week, and God forbid there's a child, that child becomes a child of an adulterous union and is illegitimate. It's a mamzer. A mamzer may not marry, which is a kind of serious matter people think about when they begin to try and manage their personal lives in this male-female situation. If a woman does not maintain her responsibilities, maybe she burns the cholent. Well, not let's not get that simple. No, but maybe she is not acting according to Jewish law. Maybe she's not dressing properly. Maybe she's not wearing tzniut. Maybe she's not covering her hair. Maybe she's not covering her elbows and covering her knees. So this is a valid reason for a husband to say, I will not support you. I will not maintain the ketubah. And frankly, I will divorce you and pay you nothing. And the Beit Din would agree to that demand. If the woman's not going to mikvah, heaven forbid, or not keeping the laws of need and separation properly, it's an absolute mitzvah to divorce her. We'll stop here. I know that I've spoken with many of you earlier this week. There was an appointment today. I'll try and see if everyone's fit in. I will try and see as we leave the class. Make sure you've all signed in, please. This Thursday, we continue with the parsha, and next Sunday we continue with the class. 2 Sundays from today is the special Tisha B'Av service. I expect all of you to please come. Thank you. You know my son, my grandson, Effie?
You were telling me about, you told me to
You don't want to buy it, or you? Oh,
You told me to remind you because he said he could help me with getting some fulfillment.
oh, that's not my nephew. This guy. Come here. Talk to him.
Elliot Feinstein.
Talk to him right now. Talk to him right now. Share it. Don't go anywhere. I'm gonna give you tefillin.
Yes, my friend.
But before you do, talk to him.
Okay.
Hey. Shabbat tov. Okay. Okay, בסדר. אני בסדר.